Well, good morning. I'm in the Philippines. It is right now 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. I believe it's about 1 in the afternoon your time on Saturday afternoon. We just got back from an island called Panay and a city called New Washington, about 65,000 people, with most of their houses, about 80% of their houses, damaged in some way. There's no electricity, and there won't be electricity for another few weeks. There is running water, but it's not drinkable, so we took our own drinking water and purification systems. Our first team to arrive was the medical team. They saw 3,000 patients in 5 days, and they arrived only 5 days after the typhoon hit. As soon as the critical injuries were taken care of, we began to look at some of the physical damage to the buildings. This is a church in a little city called Polo, and we offered them resources to help rebuild the school they had, and also to use money to reach out to their neighbors who also had damage, because many of the houses that were made out of bamboo and nipa had fallen down. This woman here's house had completely fallen down. She was an older woman, and her husband was quite old, but she still had to take care of her young grandchildren because her children's house had been destroyed as well. If the parents and the extended family couldn't take care of the children because they didn't have food, they were brought here to an orphanage. Many of the children were malnourished, and so we gave them rice and fish to get them back to health and get them back to their parents. One of the first things you learn in a disaster is that the children are most affected, but it's also the children that are the most resilient. And it doesn't take much for them to laugh and to smile and to know that they are loved by people who are all the way across the world. Many of the children were terrified when the storm went through. These two little guys, Louis and Luke, Genevieve and their mom Rose, had that house fall on them. Her husband was gone working, and her father had to come through and pick the house up off of them to get them out. We had packed a few tents to use ourselves, but because we could stay at the mayor's house outside, we decided to give these kids the tent. It could act as a mosquito net to keep them from getting malaria, and also would shed water, because most of the family was really living in their houses that had no roofs.
Oh look, I think Rich found another tent.
That's for you. Is that okay?
Party home.
The whole family consisted of a grandpa, a grandma, a few of her sisters, and 5 daughters, 3 son-in-laws, and about a dozen grandkids, all living in the same compound. So when we gave them the tents, they were ecstatic, because all of them had been living in places that no one would want to live in. We even went back the next day after a hard rain and wind, and everyone was doing fine. Our goal is to work with Nonoy, the barrio captain, to build a compound for this extended family that could be used as a model for the rest of the village. Already working with civil engineers from SSOE in Toledo, from those in the Philippines and the United Nations, to create a model that would withstand the winds. And then we'll train David, Rose's husband, who's a carpenter, to train the other villagers how to build that kind of structure. Another building project that could be done very quickly and make a large impact is to redo the roof on the school. Much of it blew off, which makes classrooms unusable. It doesn't keep the children from going to school and learning, and it doesn't seem to affect their happiness, but the project would show the community and the teachers how much we value their children. The long-term goal is to help the people of Panay recover socioeconomically. These fishermen, who once would have full nets to feed their families and to sell at the market, now only get a small amount of fish. The fish should move out deeper into the sea, and they need larger nets and bamboo poles to catch enough fish for their family and to sell to make a living. The other group who have been affected have been the rice farmers. The rice harvest was ready to be taken just before the typhoon. When the typhoon hit, many of the fields were destroyed. Our prayers, the church would come together. We would give up resources, time, and energy. God would be glorified. Many people would come to know Christ. And Ackland and New Washington would know that we're brothers and sisters in Christ.